In November 2007, 4 teachers were given the opportunity of a lifetime.
Absolutely incredible.
A chance to spend a month in Antarctica.
You get up out of your tent in the morning and you've just got this amazing view, beautiful sunshine, mountain range in the background, pretty much white for as far as you can see.
They explored the science.
It's one of the first ever lichens collected at the Henderson Glacier.
And discovered themselves.
At the moment, I'm sort of a bit fed up. There are several things about life in Antarctica which really get on your nerves.
While at home, their students experienced it with them.
I've got a class full of children here. All right. They're dying to speak to you.
This is the story of how they got there and what they brought back for the benefit of themselves and their students. In 1958, Sir Vivian Fuchs became the first person to lead a successful expedition across Antarctica.
Oh, that's rather a good one. Grinning exuberantly at journey's end, Fuchs at Scott Base enjoying first good meal in 36 days.
50 years later, his son Peter is still keen to promote his father's sense of adventure and love of the polar region.
There are countless people I meet who say, "Oh, your father had an enormous influence on my career." And it's really from that the idea of developing the Fuchs Foundation has come, to help young men and women, boys and girls, to have character-forming experiences.
To mark the 50th anniversary of the expedition, the Fuchs Foundation was relaunched to promote the study of 2 subjects Sir Vivian was most passionate about: science and geography. Every 2 years, 4 teachers of these subjects are to be sponsored by the Foundation to formulate a science project and conduct it in Antarctica.
If you inspire your teachers, which is a very good thing, they inspire their students, and everyone around them sees the benefit, and there's a big multiplier.
I'm just preempting if they don't
In 2006, a modern-day explorer, Steve Bull, was commissioned by the Foundation to head up the expedition and to choose from hundreds of hopefuls 4 teachers who could live up to the Fuchs name. Following a rigorous selection procedure 18 months prior to the expedition, 4 people were chosen.
How do you think that went as a way of bringing across ideas?
Youngest of the group is Phil Avery, a geography teacher from Surrey.
I think the first thing that stood out was the fact that this was an opportunity which was right up my street in terms of being a geography teacher, that was to go to possibly, in my opinion, the most amazing place on Earth. And the thing that made it amazing was the fact that it's so alien to me. The conditions, the environment, the weather, the fact that so few people have been there, and put all that stuff together, and it's just a place that you can hardly imagine. And if you can hardly imagine something, then that's what I want to go and see.
So that might help you with one.
The second geography teacher to join the team is Ruth Hollinger, based in Sheffield.
I think I'm a bit of a self-confessed geography geek and, a real interest in geography. I love sort of travelling, different people, different sort of places. And I think going to Antarctica is a fantastic opportunity to use my experiences to encourage more other young people to take an interest in geography and indeed science.
13 minutes left. You're doing the steps of genetic engineering.
First of the 2 science teachers is Amy Rogers from Leicestershire.
It's something that I've always had in the back of my mind as a place that I'd like to see, because you hear so much about it on the news and about global warming and climate change and how Antarctica is being affected. And because of all the science that's coming out of Antarctica, it's something that's been on my radar for quite some time. And the chance to actually get there and see it for myself and experience it for myself was something that I really wanted to get involved in. And also it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to try and get pupils in as well, and just to share the experience with them and hopefully to motivate them to just feel a bit more excited about science.
There's supposed to be a gene on the Y chromosome that gives you hairy...
Fellow biologist Ian Richardson from Cambridgeshire completes the team.
I'm fascinated by the challenge of actually making a success of the expedition, you know, of going there, finding out something useful and worthwhile, living sort of successfully out there in really very difficult conditions. So the whole experience is attractive.
With the 4 intrepid teachers now chosen, it will be over a year before they and their projects were ready for the expedition. Before they could even think about Antarctica, they had to raise £10,000 to match the same offered by the foundation.
Very quickly, the project changed from being this incredible opportunity to simply a fundraising exercise. And that's what it was, writing to companies, running little things like giving flowers for Valentine's Day, going to craft fairs and running a raffle, anything I could do. Sometimes I'd go to events and make £80. Sometimes I'd make £3,000 by selling my blog to a company. So some days were rubbish, some days were superb. Should be your duvet, because that's full of feathers, just like your duvet. Things like today, the Crawley Down Village Fair, probably will only make £80, £100, but my philosophy all along has just been to keep it ticking over. It's horrible if the money just stops coming in completely.
And for one member of the team, it was an excuse to get dressed up.
It's been a real slog so far. It's writing lots and lots of letters, not getting very much response, and just really a big effort on time and commitment, trying to get people really aware of what you're doing. And it's been a real slog, but it's been really rewarding as well.
The fact that they have to contribute £10,000 is quite challenging. The fact that they spend 18 months training is quite challenging. Doing all this while still holding down a full-time teaching job. So that's quite some challenge.
But this trip would be no holiday. Because the Antarctic is the harshest continent on Earth, the team would have to be acclimatized, and expedition leader Steve Bull organizes a trip to Norway. But it isn't solely to test the teachers' stamina in extreme circumstances.
The aim of the whole expedition is for them to do science projects in Antarctica that can then be fed back and inspire children in schools. So this Norway trip is the trial of the science projects. We need to make sure that your science projects, that each individual teacher with their individual project generates enough material for you to be working from 10 till 4 in the afternoon. Have you got the right collecting materials, sampling materials, find out what works, find out what doesn't work. Only then will we know that when we get down to Antarctica, that when you're there for 28 days, are those science projects going to be robust enough to withstand up to that?
On arriving in Norway, the team make their way to the Ostedalsbreen Glacier, 60 miles from Bergen, where they will be camping for 2 days and 2 nights. It's the largest glacier in Europe and only accessible on foot. A tough climb over some demanding terrain, a test in stamina for any budding explorer.
He said, oh, it's only a 4-kilometre walk from the minibus up to the glacier. You sort of think, oh, that's just like down the road from my house. You don't sort of sometimes put it in context, and none of us have ever been to Norway before, so I suppose it's just getting used to local terrain.
The trip to Norway is also a chance for the teachers to meet expedition guides Carolyn Bailey and Carl Alvey, who would ultimately travel to Antarctica with them.
We're going to get secondary movement behind that, aren't you?
So the only thing about that is that...
Barely a mile into the trek, and Ian, plus Blister, is already in need of their care.
I knew I was reasonably fit, but I was conscious that I just didn't have the spring, particularly of sort of Phil and Ruth, who seemed incredibly sort of outdoorsy and fit, and I did worry slightly that I would struggle to keep up in certain circumstances.
Ian has been a biology teacher for 19 years, and with a family, of all the team, he has the most commitments.
Well, it's difficult. I've never been away from my family for more than a few days, so this is the most substantial period of time I've been away from my wife since we were married. So yes, that's probably at the back of my mind quite a lot.
The expedition to Antarctica is coinciding with his daughter's leaving for university, an upheaval for the family in itself.
That's kind of starting to sink in now, is that it is actually, I'll be away, so Mum will be on her own. But no, I'm just basically really excited for him because he started off doing research before he started teaching, and so it's nice for him to be able to go back to that again as well.
Relishing the trek to the glacier is Sheffield-based geography teacher Ruth Hollinger. She's no stranger to challenges in far-off countries.
I spent about a year of my life on a bicycle cycling from London to the Earth Summit in Johannesburg in South Africa. And if you're going to have an opportunity to sort of have some of those experiences, then you've got to take, you know, the rough with the smooth. You've got to be prepared to endure difficult conditions, being really hot, being really cold, being really miserable, being really happy, and that's what makes the experience at the end of it.
After a grueling 4-hour trek, the teachers reach their destination.
That's impressive.
Jostedalsbreen is a 1-mile-long sheet of blue ice formed 18,000 years ago during the last ice age. It's to be home for the next 2 days.
Bit odd, you've been stumbling across nice, dry, warm gravel up to now, and then you get on this stuff and it looks as this sort of covering of gravel and dirt and moss, and it looks like it should be really grippy, but it's a tiny little covering. Underneath is just blue ice, really, really slippery. Right, shovel that lot down there, and I reckon we're...
A little tricky too to put up a tent and secure it to the ice, but it's something they have to master, because these are the very tents they have to erect and use for shelter in the Antarctic.
I mean, I would say that camping on a glacier in Norway, it was a bit grim really, because everything's cold and wet. But that's probably a good test, you know. If you can cope with that, then you probably cope more easily with Antarctica.
It's a good job that camera doesn't have smell-o-vision on it, that's all I can say.
Bit of a restless night on the glacier, just really quite solid sleeping on ice, and I've got a thin, well, not thin, this is quite a thick foam mat actually, and although very good at keeping the cold of the ice away from me, it's not the most comfortable thing to sleep on. But I'm just going to get a hot drink on now and then have some breakfast, which, because we couldn't buy any milk on the way in, is cereal with cold water. Lovely.
Wait there a second, wait there a second, wait there a second.
As well as being a newcomer to the world of adventure, Phil Avery only became a teacher 2 years ago.
Before I was a teacher, I was a store manager for Boots up in Nottingham. And although the company's great to work for, I enjoyed managing people, the day-to-day underlying thing that I was doing didn't really interest me. So I decided to go back to something that I really enjoyed, which was geography. And teaching was brilliant fun.
Phil's hobby is long-distance running, and it's his interest in the body's endurance abilities that inspired his choice of personal science project he would undertake on the expedition.
My science project came about from reading a book by Dr. Mike Stroud, who walked across Antarctica, ran our finds, and has done many Arctic journeys and lots of other bits and pieces. And in there he talks about doing science experiments on himself and random finds as they walk across Antarctica. And that got me thinking. I said, well, can I do something like that myself?
Phil has devised a method of comparing the weather with how the team are performing and feeling.
The wind speed.
He takes weather readings every hour, then compares the conditions to the data he collects about how the team are coping via daily questionnaires.
It's a bipolar questionnaire, and we can see how things fluctuate. And overall, you've got all these different factors. You'll be able to see how the person's doing overall and what's affected it. So am I feeling happy? Am I feeling calm or relaxed? Am I feeling motivated? And then can we correlate that with what I've eaten, how much sleep I've had, with the temperature that we've experienced today, with how much physical activity we've done today, with how much I've been injured and all that type of things.
Personal well-being was on the mind of one team member as soon as she was picked for the expedition.